With deep expertise in the travel industry and its transformation, Mike Giordano, founder and CEO of MCJ Advisory, will introduce our next discussion by setting the scene on what sustainable travel looks like in practice. Mike, the floor is yours.
So, welcome everybody. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Giordano. I draw upon my experience of working globally in the transport sector and a good understanding over the last 10 to 15 years on aspects of transport and the issues surrounding tourism and transport. We have an esteemed panel today, a very varied background panel. So my presentation and for the next 10 to 15 minutes will touch upon a number of aspects which impact tourism, impact countries, and clearly impact tourists and the local population. So I just start off with a few numbers. So 2024 saw over 1.5 billion arrivals globally. So we're literally back to pre-COVID levels. The importance of travel and the tourism industry cannot be understated from an economic perspective. Globally, it's almost 10% of GDP. By 2034, it's estimated to be anything between 12 and 15% of GDP. And the travel and tourism industry contributes to 12% of global jobs. And the Western Balkans is no different. We saw a 23% rise in tourism in 2023, contributing to 14% of GDP. And when you drill down into Montenegro, 2.5 million visitors in 2024, with GDP contributions at anything between 25 and 30%. So travel and tourism is a very strong economic driver. But it is also a driver of issues and challenges in the transport sector. It contributes to 8% of global carbon emissions, 49% of which comes from air travel. The increase in global cruise tourism is having an impact around the world, and that's expected to increase by something like 18% of pre-pandemic levels. And we've also seen an increase in visits to UNESCO World Heritage Sites by thousands of tourists, which also contributes to the degradation of these sites. But the good news is sustainability is at the forefront of traveler attitudes and behaviors. The demand for sustainable travel is rising. Eco-conscious travelers are willing to pay premiums for greener flights and sustainable accommodation. And this is pushing the industry to prioritize sustainability. 83% of global travelers acknowledge the importance of sustainable travel. 57% aim to reduce energy consumption. 43% feel guilty when making less sustainable choices. Given how important the economy, travel and tourism to the economy is, there is clearly a perception that more is better. Local, national governments, tourist boards have long believed that more is better. A successful year in tourism is one which numbers have increased substantially. It's a huge economic driver. But it's recognized that such growth needs to be managed responsibly. But more has its impacts, particularly in the transport sector. There is a mismatch of growing travel demand versus supply. Whilst airports and ports around the world are being expanded, upgraded, at the other end, local destinations are struggling to cope with the influx, particularly during the peak season. And why? Because local transport systems have not been designed to cope with such seasonality, particularly during the summer season. Connectivity from the airports are relatively weak. Public transport is also somewhat weak and unreliable. Intermodal transport hubs that connect walking buses, cyclists, taxis are not adequate enough. And it's not only the transport systems that are starting to suffer, it's also other services like power, waste collection, water, drainage. They are all being strained by the sheer volume of demand of tourism. And that demand has other additional impacts. Threats on UNESCO World Heritage Sites, social impacts. We are seeing an increasing number of demonstrations around Europe and the Mediterranean at some hotspots, namely Netherlands, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and notably Spain, against the tourists. And the economic impacts, whilst there are clearly economic benefits, they also have economic impacts. Popular destinations such as Barcelona, Amsterdam, Valencia have seen rental prices skyrocket, with owners prioritizing short-term rentals for tourists over long-term tenants. In Turin alone, rents surged by 37% in 2024. And it's created a crisis, a housing crisis, and it's forcing students, young professionals, and long-term residents out of the urban centers. So what's our response? Well, in terms of travel and tourism, quite a lot is being done. The master plans that are being developed have far more sustainability embedded. We have IFIs, international funding agencies, and other major companies working very hard on sustainable aviation fuel technology. Countries are rolling out EV, and only the week before last, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development held a large conference on low emission, future resilient ferry services. But we must take care. The Western Balkans, and particularly Montenegro, is at a moment in time. And I feel it needs to take care on the direction it will take in terms of tourism and the type of tourism it needs and wants. It's a 650,000 population with a 2.5 million tourist demand every year. It's a significant challenge for transport systems that have not been designed to accommodate such a demand. But strategy starts at the top. And the question that has been asked over the last 2 days is, what is Montenegro's overarching vision for tourism? What are the sustainable transport plans that are being developed for local areas to be able to accommodate such demand. And difficult decisions need to be taken. And I've sat on both sides, on the private and public sector. And it's a very difficult discussion to have with ministers, with mayors, and with prime ministers to some extent, when you say we need to take away road space for vehicles to accommodate public transport, cycle network routes, EV buses, and pedestrians. But there is a real need here to protect the culture, the heritage, and the ecology, and more importantly, the identity of the area. And I've seen many strategic tourist plans, very glossy, beautifully written and rolled out. But it's simply not it should not be a tick box exercise. We have to avoid, and this is from experience, ad hoc knee-jerk reactions to tourist demand. Ensure the approach is not fragmented. Avoid conflicting priorities. And a very somewhat controversial one, do not bend the planning rules and laws of the country. And as the Prime Minister stated yesterday, do not seek short-term gains. Look at the medium and long-term health of tourism in this country. So in conclusion, a couple of questions that we're posing. How can we move beyond greenwashing to embed sustainability in the traveller's journey, particularly here at the local side of it? What investments and mindsets are needed to position the Adria region as a leader in responsible tourism? So I'll now hand over to Alexandria, who's going to manage the panel. And yes, and I'm sure we'll be very interesting to hear what the panel has to say on some of these issues. Thank you.